America, can we talk? It's been a week. And if you look like me, it's been a lifetime of generations. But this last month has been a doozy. COVID-19 is nowhere near over, but we've decided we're over COVID and have returned to business as usual while mostly Black and Native peoples continue to die disproportionately. We watched as Ahmaud Arbery was hunted and killed by white savages for running while Black in what seems to still be the Confederate South. And in return, we ran with Ahmaud in his honor, and we rallied for the arrest of his killers. Breonna Taylor was murdered in her own home by police who entered the wrong house, guns blazing, and then had the nerve to arrest her partner for defending their home from unannounced, unidentified armed men. Unfortunately, Breonna's death hasn't gotten the attention it deserves because she's both Black and female, and her death wasn't filmed, so we don't have to keep reliving it over and over and over again. Yet and still, we managed to successfully advocate for the release of her partner. If I stopped here, there would be more than enough tribulation for the average American to endure in a year, let alone a month. But if you're Black in America, it doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of the depth and breadth of racial trauma we've experienced just in the last week. It's been a week where white lies matter and Black lives seemingly don't. Merriam-Webster defines a white lie as a lie about a small or unimportant matter that someone tells to avoid hurting another person. It notes that English statesman Sir Thomas More wrote in the 16th century that he hoped he was, quote, not so superstitiously veracious as to reckon every white lie as Black as murder, end quote. It's an interesting characterization of lies and murder where what is white is juxtaposed against that which is Black as parallels of harmlessness versus harmfulness, when in fact white lies have been a primary vehicle for Black murder throughout history. Specifically, white lies by white women against Black men. The lynching of 14-year-old Emmett Till by white men acting on the white lie of a white woman is perhaps the most infamous instance. But you don't have to go back as far as 1955 to find other examples. Just go back to last Saturday, when a white woman in Florida lied to police, alleging 2 Black men had abducted her autistic son, who in reality was drowned by his own mother's hands. The accusation of the kidnapping of white children by Black men is ironic, considering Black men wouldn't even be here if not for the kidnapping of our children, many of whom never even made it to the American shores because they too were drowned in the Atlantic by white hands. Then in a separate event on Monday, a white woman named Amy Cooper decided to call the cops on a Black man in Central Park who had asked her to leash her dog, which is the rule. Her response, and I quote, "I'm going to tell them there's an African American man threatening my life." Karen's favorite words. Words that have been weaponized against Black men, but words that also jeopardize the substance of the phrase, believe women. You see, believe women has been the default position in reports of violence against women, and rightfully so. But as my college mate sociologist Dr. Saida Grundy states, as white women have taken advantage of this otherwise empowering phraseology to enact violence against Black men, we have to re-examine the context for which we believe women with wholesale acceptance because of people like Amy. Abuse survivors everywhere should be in an uproar about this potential threat to delegitimize Me Too and other movements to end violence against women, because that's exactly what false allegations like Amy's do. Fortunately, Amy's behavior was caught on video, and she has since lost her job and her dog. But what if we didn't have visual evidence of Amy's white lie? In the words of Will Smith, racism isn't getting worse, it's getting filmed. And as much as I hate to see it, I hate even more to wonder where we'd be without it. Where would we be without footage of a Black man being lynched by a white policeman in Minneapolis on the same Monday a white dog walker lied on a Black bird watcher in Central Park? And I purposely say lynched because modern police departments are just an evolution of slave patrols and night watches designed to police the behaviors of Black people. George Floyd, who's from the same neighborhood I grew up in Houston, Texas, emerged from third ward housing projects just to be strangled to death in a Midwest city by people sworn to protect him. And for what? Possibly passing a fake 20? Is that all I'm worth? 20 bucks? So I can understand the unrest we're seeing right now in the Twin Cities and around the country. And while I don't condone the destruction of things, when you continue to put more value on property than human life, riots are a likely consequence. White folks riot when they win or lose a sporting event. Certainly black folks can emote when a life is lost. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said it better than I ever could. He said, "I think America must see that riots do not develop out of thin air. Certain conditions continue to exist in our society which must be condemned as vigorously as we condemn riots. But in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard." And what is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last few years. It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity. And so in a real sense, our nation's summers of riots are caused by our nation's winters of delay. And as long as America postpones justice, we stand in the position of having these reoccurrences of violence and riots over and over again. King ends by saying, "Social justice and progress are the absolute guarantors of riot prevention." The only thing I'd add is that after 400 years of racial oppression, anything less than the complete eradication of systemic racism cannot be considered progress. Not black billionaires or even a black president, but the total deconstruction of anti-black racism. That means supporting white supremacy structures have to relent, whether voluntarily or by force through boycott, divestment, sanctions, and other forms of nonviolent activism. In simpler terms, white people have to shed their chains. See, the tricky thing about oppression is we often only think about the oppressed as being stuck, and therefore the only people in need of liberation. But the truth is, both the oppressor and the oppressed are in bondage together, and our liberation is bound. Imagine someone pinned down on the ground unable to move because someone else is holding them there. Better yet, don't imagine it. Just see the 8 minutes George Floyd gasped for air as the life was squeezed out of him. Our first mind says that the one being held down is the only one in need of freedom. But the reality is, both are stuck. The oppressed can't get up, and in order for that to remain true, the oppressor can't let up. In order to end oppression, both the oppressed and the oppressor have to be liberated. It's the reason Colin Kaepernick took a knee and MLK before him, and the society of effecting the abolition of the slave trade of the 18th century before them, where British potter Josiah Wedgwood later popularized the society's design of a black man in shackles, down on one knee, with his hands clasped, exclaiming, "Am I not a man and a brother?" Until I am recognized as a man and a brother, until white supremacy liberates itself of the need to keep its knee on the black man's neck, none of us will be free, and all of us will continue to be stuck in this perpetual cycle of racist oppression. So as I sit here in this sanctuary, my prayer today and every day is not only for the liberation of black people, who I'm so proud of, by the way. We've done so much with so little. It's a miracle we haven't burned this country down to the ground for the atrocities waged against us. It's evidence of the dignity we possess and the humanity they say that we don't have. But I especially pray for the liberation of the American majority, because our liberation is bound. Racism is this country's original sin, and America has some serious repenting to do. Not just outright racist, but my skin folk who subscribe to whiteness and my liberal white non-racist friends who voted for Obama both times and take every opportunity to refer to themselves as ally when it's a label that you can't assign yourself. I'm talking to you too. And I'm praying for you and asking you to hold your people accountable because we're out of breath, exhausted from troubleshooting a problem that's not ours to solve. I can't breathe. And if I can't breathe, neither can you. So why not get free together? Remember, we all used to be somebody else. What's most important is that we're always working to be better today than we were yesterday. You be the cure you wish to see in the world. Peace and blessings.